You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Forget the lies, the money. We're in this together and through it all. They said nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo soldiers, welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to the 28th of August 2000. Tonight we've got Raw in Greensboro, North Carolina, while Nitro's in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And guys, the NWO's back. Well, NWO 2000. Jeff Jarrett gave Kevin Nash an assist on Thunder, and Nitro opens up with Big Kev, Double J, Scott Steiner and Vince Russo getting out of a limousine before heading into the arena. WCW also played an NWO 2000 hype video before the show opened up, so they're definitely presenting this as an NWO comeback. But let's see how long it lasts. Staying the course is not exactly WCW's strong suit. Over on Raw, Mick Foley promises an exciting show just 24 hours after SummerSlam. He's booked a women's title match, he's booked a Chyna vs Val Venis IC title match, we're going to see Tazz vs Steve Blackman for the hardcore belt, hell yeah, and The Rock's going to defend the WWF title against Kane. Stephanie McMahon hasn't been seen for 24 hours, Hunter's waiting for her backstage, so I assume she's choking on Kurt Angle's Olympic gold medal right about now, but who knows. Whatever the case, thank you for choosing Reliving the War today, thank you for being here, let's see what happened this week on Raw and Nitro. We've got 6-man tag matches to kick us off. The Acolytes and Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit in TNA. On Nitro, the Dark Carnival take on 3 Count. Jericho can't wait to get his hands on Chris Benoit. Y2J launches an early attack, and when the two get in the ring, the Crippler gets lit up big time. Jericho got ripped off last night at SummerSlam and he's looking for some payback. Y2J performs a missile dropkick and a double underhook backbreaker, but Tess puts a stop to Jericho's flurry and we move to the Acolytes doing some work with TNA. Loads of fun seeing the Acolytes throw Test around like he's nothing, though Big Albert manages to hold his own against Bradshaw and Farouk. As expected though, the match breaks down and we end up with a big 6-man brawl, and a highlight here was Albert performing a TKO on Jericho. Albert tries a press slam, Bradshaw hits him with a big boot, Y2J gets a pinfall win after delivering a lion salt. So it's a crowd pleasing opener on Raw, though the finishing outcome didn't really do anything to progress the Jericho vs Benoit story. On Nitro, the Great Muta joins the commentary table to watch his buddies take on 3 Count. Yeah, that's what I said too. We quickly go outside where the 3 Count boys get to show off some high risk moves, and if you're wondering where Tank Abbott is, Courageous and company beat him up on Thunder, so that relationship is now over. Tank Abbott has no one, forever alone. It makes you wonder why 3 Count just didn't do this in the first place. Sugar Shane and Courageous pull off a double suplex on Vampiro as Muta goes crazy on commentary. Get this man a Xanax. Shannon finds himself in a bad spot when he takes the nail in the coffin, and our match ends with a Samoan drop from Violent J and a top rope leg drop from Mr. 2-Dope. After the bell, Tank Abbott comes down to beat up 3 Count, but the Carnival end up helping the boys out and Wank gets annihilated. The Demon came down to help out Tank because I guess he's a big fan of his work, so Muta came in to miss the Demon. WCW production strikes again, folks. This random shot of a fan was way more important than the green mist. It all ends with the Stinger coming out to wreck everybody. He's hitting home runs and the crowd are going nuts. And we get a glimpse of the absolute state of this company when Sting celebrates afterward alongside the Kiss Demon and Tank Abbott. Triple H is freaking out about Stephanie, and X-Pac tells his buddy not to worry. Pac just saw Steph, and apparently she's in good hands. Hunter doesn't appreciate X-Pac making fun of him, so he gets some wise words from the wisest man in the WWF, Road Dogg Jesse James. Road Dogg says it's okay, Stephanie can look after herself, and the roadie, being a husband and all, knows exactly what Hunter's going through. So I guess Road Dogg's wife also got reeled by Kurt Angle. Angle's music plays in the arena, Triple H looks a bit surprised, and Angle's going to cut a promo next on Raw while Nitro presents an NWO 2000 promo. Kurt explains that he got a bad concussion last night at SummerSlam and therefore he doesn't remember much about last night. SummerSlam could have been the greatest night of his career, but thanks to Triple H's pedigree attempt, Kurt just doesn't know what happened. What Kurt does know, however, is that he still competed in the match. He knows that Hunter smacked Steph, and he knows he got Stephanie safe to hospital after the pay-per-view ended. In Kurt's eyes, Hunter's recent actions are borderline criminal. JR butts in here to remind fans that Hunter accidentally hit Steph, but Kurt's in the ring saying that Triple H is a bad husband, and that's where Triple H draws the line. The game marches down to the ring, he gets in Kurt's face, and he says Angle didn't get a concussion last night, the game gave Kurt a concussion. Triple H wants to know where his wife is, and if Kurt doesn't spill the beans, Hunter will show how criminal he can really be. Angle says he doesn't have a clue, though he does have a slimy smirk on his Olympic mug. Hunter knows that Kurt likes to play the ignorant jackass every week. He actually does a wonderful job, but Hunter's not buying it. Kurt's not fooling anyone. So before he gets his ass beat, Angle better tell Triple H where his wife is. Kurt says he's an Olympic gold medalist, Triple H says whoop-de-doo, and something I should point out here is that fans are cheering for Triple H tonight. Kurt says maybe Steph hasn't contacted her husband because she's afraid of him, maybe she doesn't trust him, or maybe, after taking a shot last night, she's had some sense knocked into her and she sees Hunter for the bastard he really is. This little line makes Hunter see red and he shoves Kurt so hard that Angle falls out of the ring. The commentators remind us that Angle's got a concussion, but Kurt doesn't seem to care and he wants to fight. Officials gain control of the situation and we go over to Chyna and Eddie backstage. Chyna says she actually feels a bit sorry for Hunter, but Eddie tells his mamacita to focus on her upcoming IC title defense. On Nitro, Vince Russo leads the NWO 2000 down to the ring, and we've also got the natural-born thrillers here to provide some ringside security. Russo says the men in the ring right now are the elite group in WCW. 11 months ago, Russo came to the company with a plan, and now, according to Vince, the band is back together. Jeff Jarrett is Slipknot. Yeah, Jeff grabs the microphone, and even with this great opportunity to deliver a fresh new promo, Double J falls back on calling himself the Chosen One, calling the fans slapnuts and slapasses, and he says no one can stop Nash, Steiner and Double J, not Goldberg, no one. Jarrett challenges Mike Awesome to a bunkhouse brawl match at Fall Brawl. Brilliant. And we continue on with the genetic freak reminding Goldberg that no one puts their hands on Big Papa Pump's freaks. He then says he could shave his ass and walk backwards and he'd still look better than Goldberg's girlfriend. I'll need proof on that. And Scott says he's gonna kick Billy Boy's ass at Fall Brawl. Nash says he doesn't care about the fans and he keeps flipping from babyface to heel so he can sell t-shirts. Big Sexy says he's the puppet master, he sucks people in just so he can make some more money. The fans can't win matches for him, they can't win him championship belts, but the men in the ring right now have his back and so he's back to being a big old bad guy. One day, I'm going to study all of Kevin Nash's babyface and heel turns at the end of WCW's lifespan because it's absolutely ridiculous right now. Typical Atlanta booking follows when Russo says Nash won't become champion at Fall Brawl. He's going to become champion here tonight. Nash vs Booker is going to take place on Nitro, so there you go folks, no need to order the pay-per-view. Jarrett's going to be the guest referee, Steiner's going to be the guest enforcer, so here comes Booker T with his sweet Tiger shirt and he tells the boys to save the drama for their mamas. The ring is currently filled with player haters and Booker wants to know which one of these guys in the ring are going to get their ass handed to them tonight on Nitro. I'm guessing he didn't just hear the championship match announcement that was made 1 whole minute ago. Commissioner Ket comes out, he brings Booker T to the ring so the champ doesn't have to face these boys alone, and Miller tells Russo and his, quote, 3 bitches to get out of the ring. This was a bad move. The babyfaces get attacked and when the filthy animals run down to provide some backup, the natural-born thrillers stop them from getting in the ring. One by one, the animals are fed to Nash and company and it's utter destruction here from the bad guys. So after they get done wrecking everyone, they head back up the ramp and that's when Bill Goldberg shows up on the Turnertron. Goldberg's in the desert, he's digging a shallow grave, and he says this grave right here is for Vince Russo, not the guy who knocked out his girlfriend last week, no, Vince Russo. Goldberg's coming to the arena soon, he's going to torture Russo, and Vince is going to get buried alive because Russo is next. Back in Russo's office, the NWO boys decide to leave Vince all alone. Nash has to get ready for a match, Scott says he has to look good for an upcoming GQ photo shoot, and Jeff has to take a special delivery that's going to help take Goldberg out. Russo's panicking, and things don't get any better when Goldberg phones his office. It's a magical phone too that continues to work even when slammed into a wooden desk.
Goldberg here. You want ratings? I'm on my way.
Paisley, Tagras and Major Guns had a triple threat match and it was an absolute botch fest. This is my pick for the worst Nitro match ever, and yes, it's overtaken David Flair versus Eric Bischoff. The referee counted Major Guns' shoulders to the mat after Guns took an elbow to the throat. The bell rang and the ring announcer said Tagras was our winner, but the match just continued on while the commentators had absolutely no idea if the bout had ended or if it was going to continue. It's clear to see that the match wasn't supposed to end after just 10 seconds or whatever it was, but the decision was made to call the bout off and the competitors just headed back up the ramp. Absolute amateur hour at WCW, and a shining example of what happens when you put untrained talent inside a wrestling ring. The filthy animals have taken out the natural-born thrillers backstage. Konnan tells Russo he's just lost his security force, so Russo's going to have to rely on Jarrett's special delivery, I guess. A special delivery of gimmick guitars. I wonder how many dimes Double J could draw if he broke all those guitars. Next, we've got Chyna versus Val Venis on Raw, while Nitro presents two matches, KroniK versus the Harris Brothers and Lance Storm versus Sergeant AWOL. The tag team match on Nitro was a House of Pain cage match, but no one got handcuffed to the cage, seeing as a panel gave way and one of the Bozo brothers fell through it. From here, a fan got attacked by a Harris brother and security ran over to help the fan and break up the two teams from fighting each other, and there's nothing else to say about this match really. It's crazy they'd go through the trouble of setting up the cage for 2 minutes of action, though I'm sure you've done some crazy shit for 2 minutes of action yourself. I won't judge. I hate to think I could have been worked, brother, but I think the fan altercation may have been real, seeing as Doug Dillinger's seen talking to the guy while KroniK and the Harris brothers get broken up. Lance Storm issued a special challenge to the MIA, a prisoner of war match where the winner would get to take a stable member from the opposing faction. General Rection thought he was being smart by putting Sergeant AWOL against Lance and adding a table stipulation to the match, but Elix Skipper gave Lance a hand and the Wall brother got put through a table after Lance delivered a springboard kick. This means Team Canada can grab themselves a prisoner, and Lance takes Major Guns. I absolutely 100% would have taken Major Guns too. She'd be great for locker room morale, plus she might become a good wrestler now that she's Canadian. On Raw, Val Venis did not want Trish Stratus to stand in his corner, so instead she watched the match from the entranceway. Venis blames Trish for losing the IC Championship last night at SummerSlam. Val shows no mercy going after Chyna, delivering back elbows, body slams and suplexes, but Val struggled to keep Chyna down for a 3 count. Chyna comes back with a clothesline, her handspring back elbow and a DDT, and when Val began choking his opponent out in the corner, Eddie Guerrero got on the apron and the champ uses this opportunity to hit a low blow before applying the deadly dick lock on the big Val Boski. Val shakes it off and he goes up for the money shot. He then notices Trish on the entranceway and he decides to leave the ring even though he had the match won. It's ridiculous. He tells Trish to go away, Eddie attacks from behind, Venis gets brought back to the ring and Chyna wins with a schoolboy pin. I wouldn't say Trish cost Val the match here, rather it was Venis' own stupidity for not delivering his finishing move. Mike Awesome's wearing a pretty fetching suit that he must have borrowed from his dad. Looking a bit 70s right there, Mr. Awesome. Mike accepts the bunkhouse match against Jeff Jarrett, but tonight Awesome wants a warm-up, so he challenges Rick Steiner to a bunkhouse match on Nitro. I should also point out that some 70s disco music was playing in the background here too, and this is the beginning of the That 70s Guy Mike Awesome gimmick. It's kinda funny how everyone makes a big deal out of the Fat Chick thriller when it only lasted about 3 weeks or so. Sting's gonna collide with the great Muta later on Nitro, and the Icon can't wait. He says tonight it's showtime folks, but don't get your hopes up, we don't see a Muta vs Sting classic on this week's show. Over on Raw, Michael Cole's asking Kurt Angle questions about last night, and Angle says he really can't remember all that much, but he does remember being in a hotel lobby and Stephanie was there. He also remembers a hotel room, room 814. Kurt thinks this could have been his room, but he then suddenly remembers it was actually Stephanie's room. So old dirty dog Kurt's still playing mind games with Triple H. Hunter, meanwhile, gets a visit from Chyna. This is incredibly awkward. Triple H says it feels like his marriage is falling apart, but Chyna says she knows Hunter and Steph are going to work their problems out. The reason Eddie and Chyna get along so well is because they trust one another, and Triple H just has to trust his wife. The two share a hug. Eddie Guerrero walks in at the wrong time, and Eddie reminds Hunter that Chyna's his mommy, and he gives Triple H a shove. The two leave the room. Hunter thinks everyone's lost their minds tonight at Raw, and we will come back to Eddie and Hunter a bit later on. That Rick Steiner vs Mike Awesome match is next on Nitro, while Raw presents Steven Richards vs Rikishi, and both matches were very short. I don't think Rick Steiner knows any other words except, if you want some, come get some, if you don't like me, bite me. And yes, I understand the importance of getting a catchphrase over, but just like Jeff Jarrett, Rick's turned into a pull string toy that repeats the same thing over and over again. This was a bunkhouse match, but we have no classic WCW bunkhouse attire or anything else that separates it from a standard hardcore bout. After about a minute of action, Mike Awesome introduced a table to the match and he went for the Awesome Bomb, but Jeff Jarrett appeared and he hit Mike with a rubber lead pipe. The 1 week Jarrett brings a literal truckload of guitars to Nitro and he uses a lead pipe. You couldn't make it up. Rick Steiner wins, I don't care. On Raw, Stevie Richards is disappointed. He's disappointed that Rikishi brought the hose back to the WWF last night at SummerSlam, and that means this rivalry is now personal. Stevie Richards must fight the good fight. He must teach Rikishi the meaning of the words appropriate behaviour. WWF fans may not know what's good for their children, but the right to censor do. Keish comes out along with two hoes. Victoria and Mandy are here too. And after Goodfather and Bull get taken out by Scotty 2 Hotty and the Grandmaster, Mr. Richards gets set in place for a stink face. Stevie manages to avoid it thanks to his censorship-loving teammates, and that's how it ends. Stevie runs away and Too Cool celebrate by dancing with the hoes. We need to give these girls two cool names. Mandy 2 Randy, and Grandmaster Bader Victoria. Oh fuck it, never mind. Fall Brawl arrives early when Booker T defends his world title against Kevin Nash on Nitro. On Raw, we've got an Edge and Christian promo. The tag champions had a hard match last night at SummerSlam and they aren't in the mood for doing their usual routine. Instead, they feel it's appropriate to show some respect to their opponents. The Dudleys aren't here tonight, but North Carolina's own Hardy Boys are. So ENC want the Hardy Boys to come out so the champs can shake their hands. The Hardys music plays, and yeah, that's the Hardys alright. They look a bit smaller than what I remember, but JR says they were put in the dryer for too long. Jim's got jokes, ladies and gents. Jeff Jr. and Fun Size Matt get in the ring with their little stepladders, and Christian says the success of TLC had nothing to do with the Hardys or the Dudleys. It was all thanks to the tag team champions. If the champs faced the Bushwhackers or even Techno Team 2000 in TLC, it still would have been great. And I don't know about that, boys. Eric Watts could stink up a joint just by looking at it. The Dudleys' pyro then goes off and fans are excited to see Edge and Christian get their asses handed to them, but we've got Dinky Devon and Itty Bitty Bubba. Look at their sweet table. You could do some serious crayon drawings on that thing. These two get in the ring. Ed says he and Christian aren't going to indulge in the time-honoured tradition of shaking their opponent's hands, but rather they're going to mock their much inferior adversaries. So here you go. The Hardys don't speak, and Christian says this is appropriate, seeing as the real Hardy Boys don't get a chance to speak either. That one was actually completely on point. And we then get a 37-second pose that consists of the minis dancing around the ring and trying to grab the belts while the champions stand tall. The real Hardy Boys show up and the jokes are now over. Edge takes a twist of fate. Matt then uses the kiddie table to wipe Christian out before Jeff uses a stepladder for poetry in motion. The Hardys then decide they want to get the grown-up adult-sized ladders into the ring, and poor Edge gets sandwiched. Before the Hardys can leap off those ladders though, Christian pulls his tag team partner to safety. Good promo here, and it's remarkable how no one's tired of this rivalry at all. These two teams have been going at it for a long time now, and somehow it still feels fresh and it still feels exciting. Vince Russo provides commentary for this WCW title match. Remember, Jarrett's our referee and Steiner's our special enforcer. And WCW had the gall to promote the upcoming Booker vs Nash match at Fall Brawl before they fought here on Nitro. Russo says there's going to be a New York screwjob in this match before leaving the commentary table. And surprisingly, Jeff starts counting Nash out when the match goes to the outside. Not only that, Jarrett sends Russo back to the commentary table. So we all know what's going to happen here. Jarrett's going to pretend like he's calling it down the middle and he's going to end up screwing Booker over. You can see it coming a mile off. As the match progresses, Nash gets more and more angry at Jeff's insistence in being a fair referee. Vince Russo's losing his mind as Double J won't provide Nash with fast counts and what have you. And Russo really goes nuts when Steiner attacks Booker from the apron and Double J tells Scott to hit the bricks. An argument breaks out between Jarrett and Russo on the outside. Jeff tells Vince to get back to the commentary table, and when Nash begins choking Booker out in the ring, Double J forcefully breaks the hold, and this allows Booker to build his comeback. We see the greatest hits here, including the Harlem sidekick, the axe kick, and the missile dropkick. Scotty Steiner runs down to interfere again, and Booker knocks him off the apron just before Nash takes a bookend. Booker covers Big Kev while Russo passes Jarrett his guitar, and yeah, you saw this coming. Booker gets hit with the acoustic equalizer. Big Nash gets up and he's wearing a big smile as the straps come down. Booker takes the jackknife, and Kevin Nash becomes WCW World Heavyweight Champion. It feels so empty right here, and I don't even think WCW wanted Booker chasing the belt going into Fall Brawl. It just feels like Nash was made champion just for the sake of it, and I say this as a Kevin Nash fan. The heels celebrate in Russo's office as Booker goes to leave the building. He tells General Rection he's done, but he soon changes his mind when Goldberg enters the arena. Goldberg tells Booker to hang around because the fun has just begun. Kurt Angle's stirring the pot. It's what he does best. If Eddie Guerrero's a real man, he should show Chyna what she really means to him. Eddie should challenge Triple H to a match because Eddie needs to fight for his woman, and Eddie falls for it hook, line and sinker. He has a word with Commissioner Foley, and just as Triple H was throwing Just Joe out of his locker room, Eddie informs Hunter that these two have a match tonight. Hunter knows what's up when Eddie reveals he was talking to Kurt Angle, but the game also says Eddie just wrote a check that his ass can't cash. Oh yeah, throwback. Tazz gets a shot at Steve Blackman's hardcore title next on Raw while the franchise cuts a promo on Nitro. And Tazz isn't happy about Jim Ross almost blinding him last night at SummerSlam. Tazz says there's going to be not one, not two, not three, but 3 victims tonight on Raw. I'm not joking either.
1, not 2, not 3, but 3 victims!
Blackman, Lawler and JR are going to be victims to the one-man crime spree, but when Tazz tries to talk smack to the commentators, Sensei Blackman wrecks him. Steve proved to Shane McMahon last night why you shouldn't mess with the dojo, and right here Blackman's teaching Tazz the exact same lesson. Tazz gets kneecapped by Master Steve, and some insane karate makes Tazz rethink his career choices. Eventually, the human suplex machine gets the better of Sensei and the match goes outside again. Tazz gets the opportunity to smack Jerry Lawler with a trash can lid, and fair dues, this looked great. But the one-man crime spree pays for this when good old JR gets hardcore live on Raw. My. Steve follows up with an incredible turbocharged apron dropkick, and Blackman retains the hardcore belt. Time to go back and defend the universe against evildoers and intergalactic cyber chodes. The King gets in another shot for good measure, though he also takes the referee out. A bad day at the office for Tazz. Shane Douglas and Tori are among the fans tonight, and the fans sitting behind them look incredibly bored. Shane says he's here to make a statement, and that statement is challenging Billy Kidman to a scaffold match at Fall Brawl. Gonna be honest, this sounds pretty interesting. Scaffold matches are either really good or really bad, so at least it's something. Crowbar shows up to attack Douglas, but this was a bad move, because Crowbar gets body slammed from the balcony all the way down through a concession table. How does such a thing happen? Well, Crowbar was distracted by Daphne and her new boyfriend. And her new boyfriend's that same R&B security goon I pointed out a month ago who kept hogging the camera every time he was on TV. I guess it makes sense now. This guy doesn't last long, by the way. Don't get invested, though I'm sure you didn't plan on getting invested either. Shane gets in the ring. He says what we just saw was a little warm-up for Fall Brawl. He calls himself the reason people tune in to Monday Nitro every week, and at this point I think more people are tuning in to see Tori. But Mr. Franchise decides to issue an open challenge to anyone in the back, and that challenge gets answered by Goldberg. Dear, dear, dear. Now, had Shane left after the crowbar bump, then this would have been absolutely fine. But of course, Goldberg wrecks the franchise and he makes him look like a jabroni. And Goldberg manages to bust himself open after delivering a spear. I guess he ran right into Shane's belt or something. I'm not going to laugh at this though, because making yourself bleed after running through your opponent's actually kinda cool, and Bill follows up with a big old jackhammer just to make sure Shane's well and truly buried. Goldberg grabs a mic, he calls Shane a prick, and he tells Russo he's in the building. I think Vince probably already knows this. In the locker room, Kevin Nash puts his belt down and he gets in the shower. Booker T takes the belt and he attacks from behind. And consider yourself lucky, Big Kev, this could have been way, way worse. Russo sees this happen. He also knows Goldberg's in the building because, Goldberg said as much. And he wants Scotty Steiner to protect him, but Scott tells Russo to piss off.
Don't touch me! You touch me, get out there and fist up your ass! Don't touch me!
Oh, and we're all invited to David Flair and Miss Hancock's wedding, September 11th in Charlotte, North Carolina. The absolute state of this wedding invitation. On Raw next, Lita defends her Women's Championship against Jackie. On Nitro, we've got Double J versus Big Vito. And fans of women's wrestling should rejoice, seeing as it looks like proper women's wrestling is back on Raw. Good stuff here too, with a flying head scissors and a Hurricane Rana from Lita. Jackie avoided a superplex by dropping Lita on her face, and this gets followed up with a few stiff kicks in the corner, followed by a very nice float over DDT. Jackie keeps the pressure on with a flapjack. Lita then took a diving crossbody. She comes back with a reverse DDT before building a little momentum with a few clotheslines. And the match ends with a twist of fate followed by a moonsault. Rough around the edges for sure, but seeing a clean, no-nonsense women's match on Raw is a good thing. Though there, of course, has to be some drama after the bell when Edge and Christian show up. Lita backs off to the apron. This allows Jackie to launch an attack. The Hardy Boys try to help Lita, but they get taken out rather easily. And inside the ring, Lita takes a spear from Edge before the heels make their escape. Still a decent enough match here though, and it's good to have a women's match that I don't have to worry about getting demonetized over. Good job, WWF. Over on Nitro, I've already seen way too much of Jeff Jarrett this week, and here we are, going through the torment of a Jeff Jarrett versus Big Vito match. Again, at least it's not the main event match, and at this point I don't think anyone really cares if Vito wins or if he loses, so you'd like to think WCW gave Jeff a clean victory here, and that's exactly what they did. The match booking itself may have sucked, but it had the right outcome. Vito thought he had it won after a back suplex followed by a diving headbutt. He then went for the Impaler DDT, but Jarrett countered with the stroke. Double J wins via pinfall, and if you thought Jeff was featured too much tonight, we aren't done yet, because he goes back to his truck full of guitars and he gets greeted by Mike Awesome. I imagine Mike fumbling around while getting himself in there and saying, haha, he'll never find me here. Double J gets power slammed on the back of a pickup truck, and I know we've got a very keen viewer who's been counting how many guitars have been broken on Nitro since Jeff's return, and I'd say you don't need to count these ones right here, mate. The Natural Born Thrillers had another match against the Filthy Animals on Nitro. Mike Sanders says he knows the Thrillers are pretty, but they're all about business. Serious business. The Animals stuck their noses where they don't belong, especially Disco with his big gonzo snout. So the Thrillers want a 5-on-5 elimination match against the Animals, and this means Tigress competed in another match. Of all the talent they've got in WCW to compete twice tonight, and they chose Tigress. This is also the first time we've officially seen Konnan in the ring in ages, and the crowd popped when K-Dog went to work, though every animal and every Thriller got counted out after they took part in a brawl, except for Tigress and Mike Sanders. Mr. Above Average thought this was hilarious, but Tigress had a plan that consisted of a slap to the face, a boot to the balls, and a Bronco Buster in the corner. Your typical Saturday night after a few too many beers, lads. You've all been there. This wasn't enough to put Mike away, and Sanders wins after delivering the 3.0, so it's a win for the Natural Born Thrillers. Goldberg's taking Scott Steiner out backstage. Russo's now panicking, and he asks Big Vito for help because he now has zero backup. Vince apologizes for making Vito's life difficult. Vito says it's all good, and Vito gives Russo a kiss because why the hell not? Nash is out, Double J's buried under a bunch of guitars, and Scotty's taking a nap too. So Russo's going to come to the ring and try to put an end to this Goldberg nonsense once and for all, while on Raw, Triple H takes on Eddie Guerrero. Russo reminds everyone that this is his show and these are Russo's people. He's refusing to be intimidated by Bill Goldberg, and now the big Vito's here, Billy Boy better come out and get what's coming to him. Goldberg gets called out. Russo reminds Bill that he can't lay a finger on him, which makes Billy Boy bark at the WCW writer. Vince gets in Goldberg's face and he begs him to throw a punch, but Bill's got a mortgage to pay and he's not stupid. Russo orders Vito to take out the garbage, and that's exactly what Vito does. The former Mama Luke smacks Vince from behind and Goldberg looks on while Russo gets his ass kicked. There's no one here to help Vince, everyone's been knocked out. So Russo gets destroyed and Vito again gets orders to take out the garbage, only the order now comes from Bill Goldberg. Bill throws his car keys to Vito, and Vito carries Russo up the rampway to presumably put Vinny Roo inside Billy Boy's car. Over on Raw, Eddie Guerrero gets off to a real good start against Triple H. No one gives Mamacita a hug, let alone Triple H, and speaking of Chyna, she's watching this one in the backstage area. Hunter comes back with a Harley Race knee, Guerrero takes a kicking in the corner, a hard back elbow puts Latino Heat back on the mat, and Eddie gets planted with a vertical suplex. We see the Ric Flair knee drop before Eddie tries to build a comeback. The crowd are singing "Hey Goodbye" at someone getting thrown out of the building, so they have no interest in Eddie's Hurricane Rana, but they do pay attention when Eddie goes up for the frog splash. The game avoids it, he then gets the opportunity to flatten Eddie with a pedigree, but Kurt Angle makes an appearance, and not only does Kurt take out Triple H with a chair shot, he also takes out Eddie Guerrero. The Olympic gold medalist is making a statement, ladies and gents. Chyna shows up as Kurt runs away, and Chyna shows concern to both Eddie Guerrero and Triple H, which is quite interesting. Kurt Angle, meanwhile, seems very happy with the damage he's caused. Before we check out our main events, Raw presented an intergender tag team match, Perry Saturn and Terry versus Al Snow and the Cat. I'm sure you won't remember a single move from this match, but you will remember Midian showing up out of nowhere showcasing his brand new gimmick. Yes, Midian is now a streaker, and yes, it is silly, but it gets an immediate pop from the audience. The fanny pack tells me that he's actually working for Shawn Michaels' Sniff Sniff delivery service, and he was obviously getting high on his own supply. It's the only explanation for this absolute madness. After Midian ran away, the Cat took a nasty bump when Al Snow got pushed into her. From here, Saturn applied the Rings of Saturn, and the team of Perry and Terry win via submission. Naked Midian, ladies and gents, it just screams world champion material. Raw's main event sees Kane get a WWF title shot against The Rock, while Nitro presents Sting versus the Great Muta. And earlier in the evening, Kane told Michael Cole he's going to give the world something to be afraid of when he beats The Rock for the title, and the people are going to be represented by a real life monster. Kevin Kelly wondered if Rock was mentally and physically prepared to take on Kane tonight, and The Rock wondered if Kevin Kelly was mentally and physically prepared to tickle the anus of a monkey. Kane's not going to represent the people, only one man represents the people, so The Rock's fixing to whip Kane's candy ass all over Greensboro. A lot of confidence here for a man who took a big boot right from the get-go as our main event gets underway. Rock tries to cool the Big Red Machine down, but this seems to piss Kane off even more. Rock takes a few shots in the corner and the WWF champ gets planted with a power slam. The crowd cheer for the Great One as he takes a suplex, and another comeback attempt gets stopped with a sidewalk slam. Kane goes upstairs, we see the diving clothesline. Rock finally manages to buy himself some time after a Samoan drop, and he capitalizes with a jumping clothesline and a DDT. We then see a referee bump as Rock gets thrown into Earl Hebner, and while the referee's down, Rock delivers a spinebuster followed by the People's Elbow. We have no one to make the count, so Rock tries to revive the fallen official, but this gives Kane the opportunity to perform a chokeslam. 1, 2, kick out at 3. So Rock gets himself up and he delivers a rock bottom. 1, 2, kick out at 3 again. Kane kicked out of the rock bottom, which at this time was really rare. So the match goes outside where the two try to do as much damage to each other as possible. It doesn't look good when Rock gets sent into the audience and Kane follows him over the barrier. So here comes The Undertaker to get his hands on his little brother. While Hebner's tending to Rock, The Undertaker parks his motorbike up and he gets in the ring to deliver a chokeslam. I guess Earl didn't hear Undertaker's entrance music. Rock slowly gets back in the ring, he covers Kane, and once again the Big Red Machine kicks out. So Rock delivers one more rock bottom, and the champion retains his title after a successful 3 count. The Undertaker gives The Rock a look as he heads back up the ramp. The Rock also looks pretty intently at The Undertaker, so maybe the American Badass is coming after the champ's gold, and I'd be all for that honestly. The Rock and Triple H stuff needs to be given a rest about now. On Nitro, we don't really get a match between Sting and Muta. Instead, we get a brawl that begins on the entranceway before the two travel around the ringside area while beating each other up. Sting has it all under control, but as the two head back up the entranceway, it's Muta doing all the damage. And then the Nitro Vision gets ripped open as Vampiro cuts through the big screen. Smoke starts shooting up from the entrance stage, and Vamp gets ready to jump off the scaffold. And yeah, okay, it looked like shit, mate. The two fight for a bit before they end up on top of the scaffold, and it ends with Sting getting brought behind the screen before the Dark Carnival give him a beating. As this plays out, there's an awkward mixture of silence and boos. This probably sounded like a cool stunt on paper, but the execution was pretty terrible. Though, speaking of execution, how would you like to see His Excellency before Nitro goes off the air? Oh yeah, Goldberg's dragged Vince Russo to the desert. He's about to bury Russo in a shallow grave, and Bret the Hitman Hart shows up. Bret doesn't want Goldberg to have all the fun. Bret says nobody hates Vince Russo as much as he does after what happened at Survivor Series 97. Russo ruined Bret's career, he ruined his family, so Bret would really like to do the honours here and teach this punk a lesson once and for all. Goldberg says no problem, he shakes Bret's hand before going off to grab the Hitman and shovel. Bill hands it over and yeah, it's a swerve, bro. Goldberg gets whacked. Bret says it wasn't Russo who ruined his career, it was actually Bill Goldberg. And Tony Schiavone closes the show by saying the band really is back together. Does this mean Bret Hart's going to be on Nitro next week? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I struggled to pick a winner this week. Raw had a decent women's match, a great Edge and Christian promo, and Eddie vs Triple H wasn't bad either. Nitro, meanwhile, had the better show-long story featuring Goldberg and Russo, a good natural-born thrillers vs Filthy Animals match, and there's intrigue surrounding the return of Bret Hart. The Angle and Triple H storyline on Raw has been good for a while now, but this week it wasn't as good as previous weeks. And while I did want to give Nitro the point, I just can't look over Kevin Nash winning the world title for no good reason and the really crappy Muta vs Sting main event. Let's not forget that women's match, which ranks up there as one of the worst I've ever seen on Nitro. So yeah, Raw wins. I can't look over the bad things on Nitro this week. Raw got a 4.9 this week in the TV ratings, while Nitro got a 3.5. You may think things were looking up for WCW here, but Raw was in a different time slot. Still good to see more people check out WCW, and hopefully these returning viewers enjoyed the more positive things Nitro had to offer this week. Next week on Raw, we're going to try to solve a mystery. Hunter got arrested on SmackDown for spousal abuse, and we need to find out who got the game thrown in jail. Was it Angle? Was it Chyna? Perhaps it was Tazz? Or maybe it was Stephanie? We'll also see The Rock and Undertaker team up for a main event match against Edge and Christian. We've got a pretty interesting episode of Nitro next week. Fall Brawl may not feature a War Games match, but Russo brings the match type back, only it's been completely reworked and revamped. War Games 2000 happens inside the Ready to Rumble Triple Cage, and the WCW Championship will be up for grabs. Hope to see you next week. If you want to see next week's episode right now, you know what to do. Channel memberships and Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and please take care.